So we talked about internal equity. We talked about external equity. How do we be equitable? Then how do we be competitive? Now we are coming to what? Individual equity. Now, when I say individual equity, this session is all about how do you design variable pay, okay, and incentive schemes. And apart from that, a little bit about the benefits and the compensation budgeting. So when we talk about individual equity, what does it mean? That means pay differentials, okay, pay differentials among two people. If you recall my first session, what did I say? If two individuals are in the same job, but some are doing more work, or some are more experienced, or some are having many more certifications, how does organization then compensate them? Right? So so how do we compensate for two individuals who are in the same job? So if, say, for example, Amrita has 10 years of experience and Dijo has 15 years of experience, both of them are recruitment managers, huh? And am I giving something for their experience, right? Huh? For their seniority? Or Amrita, in a recruitment position, she's able to achieve 150% target, and Dijo is able to achieve only 100%, then am I giving the same salary, or am I giving some extra for that extra performance? How do I compensate for that? Okay. How do I bring about equity within the individuals? This is what it is. So when we talk about equity, it's all about the extra money or the variable pay which we give. So when we talk about, as the name suggests, variable pay, what does it mean? As the name denotes, which varies. It is not a guaranteed pay. It is not a guaranteed pay. It's not a fixed pay. So, in fact, if you recall, 2 or 3 decades ago, who are the people who would actually get variable pays? It was the top management who were getting ESOPs and stocks and shares, and they also had certain percentage of their salary as variable pay. But now what do you say? What is the trend? What is the trend in the market? Almost every organization has variable pay, right? Every
Right.
organization has certain percentage of their salary as variable pay. Why? Because the market is so competitive. So competitive. Now, so why do you think organizations are now actually having a variable pay in their components? Because why? How will they motivate people to stretch, to do more work? If you are going to pay the same amount to X who's making 100 units and also to Y who's making 200 units, there's no differentiator. So people have now started across all organizations the component called variable pay. Now let us actually see. Now when we talk about variable pay, it's a part of the direct pay. And if you recall what I said yesterday, it's all about cash. Total cash component. Under total cash component, variable pay is a key component along with base pay. Base pay is your fixed component, cash component, and variable pay is your variable component. Now, it doesn't come with what? With a guarantee. It comes with certain kind of contingencies. It comes with certain kind of what? When I say contingencies, under certain conditions. Typically, organizations are driving performance. They are stretching that performance. And what is the advantage for the employer when they have variable pay like this? Because in today's context, most of the organizations are driving pay for performance or high performance culture organizations. So what is the advantage for employer? So when you are having variable pay, a certain amount of a percentage you have allocated for variable, that means you stretch more, you perform more, and you will get money. So what happens? There is cost efficiency tied to those results. That means you don't perform, you're not getting it. So I am not expected to then give month on month like a base salary. So there is cost efficiency. Then it also attracts top talent, saying that, hey, I can earn more. So most of the high performers, top performers, what do? They get motivated because there's a high percentage of variable pay. I can really work more and earn more. And because of that, they are also highly engaged. And the variable pay creates a performance culture, right? Any other benefit for the employer? All of you, I'm sure, have some kind of a variable pay in your organization. Do you have, or yes or no? Some kind of a variable pay. Now, variable pays, we talked about, besides the performance, we will do more detailed kind of a study about performance. But we also talked in the first session, there are other variable pays, like, for example, hardship. Any one example for hardship, guys? Any one example for hardship?
People who go you're in basically in your EPC industry, wherein people have to go for construction in difficult area or
Absolutely.
oil
Abs-
rigs and all,
Hazardous area, night shift area.
Is it
coal
remote?
mines
Absolutely.
and
Huh?
maybe
Huh?
Remote area
mining
allowance also
industry.
hardship, ma'am?
Yeah. In
Remote?
fact, in Pratyas organization, there will be plenty of those hardships,
Yes.
right?
So, ma'am, remote area
Refractory.
allowance is also comes under hardship allowance?
Beg your
Remote
pardon?
area allowance, somebody transporting
Absolutely.
JNK or
Absolutely, because if a person is going to be posted to a remote area, if for that period he gets remote allowance, why is this given as an allowance and not a part of a base salary? Because there can be rotation, people can be transferred, people can be shifted from night to day shift. So as long as you are there, your order says as long as you are there, you get this allowance, so that the organization doesn't actually get pay as a part of a continuous salary. Then we also talked about a hot skill, if you recall. Anybody who remembers? Because I want to save up time for other things. Anybody who remembers hot skill? Quick, quick. Guys, all senior people. What is hot skill?
Skill as in the skill which is prevalent in the market, like Java or let's say Python.
No,
Currently,
Sagar. There is a little difference in
Oh,
this.
having high
What happens
criticality.
suddenly, the hot skill is related to supply and demand.
Right.
yeah.
Suddenly what is happening, if you find that suddenly, a particular lot of startups have come up because they find that this is very, very lucrative, high profit margin, and so they have set up shops for and let's say, for example, in my previous organization, medical coding is a very highly profitable, the profit margins are very high. It relates to healthcare. So, you know, then what happens if you're not cognizant of the fact that, hey, your top performers can go away, even your average performers can go away, because when mom and shops or startup shops come up, they're actually looking up for people who are fully there, plug and play. So they don't mind paying the two times more as opposed to the current salary that person is actually drawing. Why? They are plug and play. That is, they can establish processes, they can set up everything. So it's worth it. They are not building talent. So they'll buy the talent two times the cost. So you have to be cognizant and say, hey, this is becoming very hot. So I need to then give certain amount of allowance till that, hot skill is there. It could be 1 year, 2 years. Then if you notice the supply and demand, the spiraling effect, then it evens out. Then it doesn't become anymore a hot skill. Because what happens, then there'll be a number of training institutes which will come up. There'll be lot many. I'll just give you an incident. Initially, when cloud computing was there. Now you will find a lot of, initially when there is any new skill which has come up, suddenly what happens, there's a scarcity, demand for that is more and supply is less. But you will see that over a period of time, then you will have uh, a lot more supply of that skill. So till such time, So you cannot add it to your base salary. Okay. So that's also called a market linked retention bonus or a hot skill. Now we also talked about merit pay. Does anybody remember about this merit pay? Or I will actually come to that skill based in detail a little more as well. We talked about, okay, if I can just show you merit skill based. Yeah. We talked about skill based pays. You recall anybody? Upskilling, cross skilling. That means you all don't go read anything, huh? Okay. So in today's times, skill-based pay is very, very popular as a compensation strategy. So when I say skill-based pay, we talked about what, say, for example, horizontal skills. It is also called cross skills. What do I mean by that? When I say horizontal skills or cross skills. For
Um,
example, I'll give her, yeah, somebody wants to.
I'll just give it a try. I mean, horizontal, it would be if it is TA, somebody is a recruiter, maybe he is also gaining expertise in comp or maybe TM or BMS
Yeah, okay.
or
So
cross-functional
that there can be job. You know, typically
IT.
you are looking at functions. Let's say, for example, I'll give you a very nice example. Typically, when we say horizontal or cross skilling, it is broad. It gives you a very, having skills at a broad range across different but related areas. That does not mean that, he is working for just that one particular recruiter, only working for that particular recruitment. In addition to that, he could be doing many other things also, many other skills as well, related. Okay.
Ma'am,
So,
I have
like, for
one more
example,
example.
yeah,
Production
yeah.
quality. Generally, they interchange their, role for multi-skilling, and also a quality person can go into production, and a production person can go into quality checks as well.
Exactly. Like, CNC machines, welding machines, assembly line. You get me? Then what happens typically? That means, a person can be rotated. He need not be, you need not hire per person for every skill per person, because there is an absenteeism turnover. It helps the organization. Welder, fitter is scarce. Welder, so I recruit welder and say, hey, you if you get certified. So whenever you have the skill based kind of a pay, what does it mean? You're actually giving people what, an additional increment which increases their base salary. So therefore, they are also motivated. They become skilled. Then there is better retention. Likewise, upskilling. What is upskilling? Like I mentioned about in organizations where you are actually growing a career path, and you're saying if you are a BCom guy and saying, hey, in a finance department or in a bank, you can actually go up to a manager. If you have this, try to finish off your CA part one, part two, or a banking exam part one, part two, you get one increment for part one, two increments for part two. So look at this motivation. Okay. And you are also supporting that educational scheme. So what does it mean for the organization? You know that how expensive it is, how difficult it is to get the right talent. So when you have high performers at a low level, so as a retention strategy, as a career growth strategy, now you can actually motivate these people, engage these people, and make career paths for them. That's called upskilling. When I say depth skilling, what is depth skilling? Say, for example, there is this coder. So you are helping him more, okay, Python and various other kind of technologies where he can actually grasp. So you are making him much more in depth. So today's organization, because you are also living in such a constant flux, volatile kind of an environment. So it's very, very important that L&D has become a very strategic function. So if you have noticed, maybe 15 years ago, L&D was just a support function of HR. But today it has become an independent function on its own. It is very, very strategic because talent is an asset. Human capital is an asset. So how do you continuously help your talent to grow by investing in it, and also by helping them to learn new technologies, which are actually very, very helpful for the organization, aligned with the organization's goals. So that's all the, so this is about so much about the skills. Yeah. So we talked about all this. I will be talking about this performance incentives. Okay. Any clarifications, guys? Here, I'm sure there's now when we talk about retention bonus, even that is a variable pay. You don't get it unless and until you are there. It does not mean that you have stayed there for 75% of the time and you are entitled for the 100% retention bonus. When we're talking about stock purchases, ESOPs, etc., these are a form of long-term incentives which are used for retention mechanisms. Okay. Let me come to this. Just to give you a little more information on that. So now we are focusing on literally performance. So at an individual level, I'm sure most of the manufacturing organizations, you must have heard of piece rates. Anybody who can just tell me, even I think Pratya can also tell. What's a piece rate? So that means, you have a predetermined number, 100 units to that is the expected. And then anything over and above, you get some amount of what? Per unit, per piece, you're getting some incentive. So number of hours, again, it's over and above those hours, you are getting some. It's like overtime. Okay. Merit pay, we talked about. Performance bonuses. Any common names in terms of performance bonuses? Typically, you get your merit bonus, annual increment bonus, that is performance bonus at the end of 6 months, maybe at the end of 1 year. And in fact, at lower level, they get month-on-month performance bonuses vis-a-vis their targets achieved. Like a sales guy gets month-on-month sales commissions, etc. This is at an individual level. Now, when we talk about at a team level, there are team awards, bonuses, and also there is a very interesting concept called gain sharing. Anybody who's heard of gain sharing? Gain sharing? Pratya? Okay. Ramachandran, since you are working, gain sharing?
If a company made more profit, share that profit with employees.
Okay, let me now clear. So it
Ma'am,
is
can I
not
make an
linked
attempt?
to, pardon?
Ma'am, may I make an attempt?
Sure, Neha.
This could happen in particular projects. If a certain project has achieved its target or probably has got some profits, then it is shared within the team. The profits being shared within the team.
You are closer, yes and no. Okay, I'll tell you why. You mixed up two things. There is something called project allowance. Okay, when a project is also a team award. So people come together, they have to finish that project in time, cost, everything, quality parameters, and they get that project. They get it or they don't get it. Now, when I say gain sharing, it is a little different from profit sharing. While profit sharing is when the organization makes profit at the end of the year, and then they'll say, hey, I made so much of profit, so I'm going to give, share this profit 5% or 10% or 15% across the organization as a percentage of base salary, etc. This year I may get some amount of profit sharing, some amount of bonus as a profit sharing bonus. Next year I may not get because I've not made any profit. So maybe there is no profit sharing at all because I've not made any profit. Okay. Now, what is gain sharing? Profit sharing is at a organization level after you make profits. But gain sharing is a month on month. It's a team award, team bonus. What happens here in gain sharing? See, what happens especially in manufacturing organizations at different locations, in order to ensure there is productivity, and then there are what objectives or metrics in terms of what time, in terms of quality, in terms of material usage, etc. There are metrics, and also they have also predetermined certain amount of what is the level of productivity they have to achieve. Since this is a collaborative effect, collaborative effort, and they want that all of them, because there is interdependency. So they come together and ensure that they, at any location, unit, department, etc., that there are certain goals or objectives which are tied to the entire team. They have to achieve that. So if they achieve anything over and above whatever has been predetermined, then they get month on month that extra profit. Say, for example, 30,000 is the gain worth this month. Now, 15,000, so additional anything over and above 15,000, so I'm going to actually disperse it. So the team gets the award, which is a little different from profit sharing. Now, the focus is also given to certain objectives. Like, for example, as I said, in some organizations, if the team reward is financial objectives or operational objectives, okay, and what is it, material, ensuring that you actually, in organizations, especially, in a manufacturing organization, you may be using up a lot of material. So, in order to ensure that there is quality and there is no what using a lot of your material, no rework. So there is also a certain percentage put on rework to ensure that they are using the material appropriately. So this is called gain sharing. Okay. One second. Yeah. Then we talked about profit sharing. Is that clear, guys? Profit sharing. We talked about skill based. Now. What is employee stock options? Typically, employee stock options in earlier times, only the top management was privy to this. But today, if you talk about it, I think in most of the organizations across all levels, some amount of employees, they are giving stocks, especially in startups, knowledge based IT companies. Why? As startups, when they cannot really afford the best of people and they can't pay high salaries, they say, hey, we're going to give you stocks, making you shareholders. And if the share price value goes up, then you get so much. So it's a long-term incentive. You cannot get immediately. It does not translate into immediate compensation. There's a vesting period for 2 years, maybe for 3 years, maybe. And even thereafter, when you are getting a letter, then it may be written, okay, fine, so many shares at this value, but you may sell only 50% of the shares. It is typically a retention strategy for the top performers, or sometimes, the most of the employees. Say, for example, you don't want to have a retention within a year or two. So you're offering it to even at a lower level also, saying that at least I want people to stay for 2 years, 3 years. So people will stay because, there are certain stocks there and they would like to make use of them. At least stay there, take the profit and then go. Okay. Any clarification, guys? Then we are moving into any clarifications here? So these are the various kinds of variable pays we talked about: short-term incentives, mid-term incentives, and long-term incentives. Now tell me, what is the intent of a short-term incentive and what is the intent of a long-term incentive from the HR perspective? Quick, guys, if I'm only going to talk and you're not going to... Pardon?
Retention
Which one?
for a long-term incentive.
Absolutely. When you are having a long-term incentives, you are actually looking at people who can stay for longer time, retaining. So all your top performers or critical assets, critical roles, they will be offered some kind of long-term incentives so that they can stay for a longer time. Short-term incentives, what could be the intent? There are only three things. Attract,
Achievement of project.
motivate,
Yeah.
attract, motivate, retain. Simple. Three things: attract, motivate, and retain. So short-term incentive, you just have to choose. Don't say, okay, okay, let me choose. Just tell me. I say MAR: motivation, attraction, retention. So which of them will be short-term incentive? Quick.
joining bonus or something for
No,
attraction.
short-term incentives we talked about, right? It will be all short-term will be within a year or so.
Right.
Month-on-month payouts. Payouts, when you say short-term, payouts are month-on-month, 3 months or 6 months, or at best 1 year, typically. Okay. So, what is the intent for the HR or what is the intent for the organization?
Motivate, high productivity.
So that means motivation. Only when you are motivated, you will perform better. If you are not motivated, then you won't perform, right? So they are ensuring that you stretch more, you perform more, so you get more. So that's called motivation. So your payouts are also month on month. If you are performing now and your payout is after 6 years, will you be motivated? So hey, come on, yeah. And especially today's generation. Are you understanding? So whatever scheme you make, you have to think what is the intent, what is that I want, and what is the employee wants, right? Why are you making this incentive plan? Okay. So look at this pay for performance. We talked about all these payouts, right? Variable pay, bonus, stocks, etc. They could be quarterly, annually, biannually. Typically, payouts which are quarterly, biannually, annually are all for motivation. Okay, they're all for motivation. And pay for skills, that is this wherever you are giving merit pay, etc. Typically you want to motivate them so that they are able to stay as well and perform better. Okay, taking into consideration the total reward strategy, because it is just not money which matters, right? People are also looking at growth factor. What is that I'm really learning? Okay. All right. So, guys, I want you all to do a quick. If Vilma is there, okay. Otherwise, only I'm going to be very strict on timelines today. So, 10 minutes. This is only for 10 minutes and very strict. What I want you all to do? Two groups quickly get together and please somebody start off writing. Brainstorm. Right. Short term. If you don't have medium, long-term incentives, okay? At individual level and at team level. Create a matrix and just write down what kind of variable pay incentives you have in your organization. The group has to come up, everybody can, come up with what kind of incentives they have. Think about it and you may have, but what is the purpose of that incentive? That's more important. Means if I have a sales incentive, I have sales people and I have sales income. That means increasing revenue or performance. Okay. If I have so the purpose of it as well. All right.
Should I present? Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. We divided this into short and long term.
Okay.
Okay, under short term, we got production incentive.
Okay.
So that
Production incentive. Production incentive. So so does it have some kind of a predetermined criteria?
So production plans, if they are achieved and all, so then non-completion.
So there is a target, right? What I'm trying to get is there is a criteria. Not that everybody who is working on the production gets automatically. There is no guaranteed. So there is a criteria, predetermined criteria, how much you have to do, what are the targets, or maybe there is a protocol to follow, etc. And based on that criteria, there are measures, metrics, it gets certain percentage, right? Okay. Yeah. Sales incentive, very, very clear. It's predetermined targets again. Retention bonus, we have discussed at length. Yeah. Annual performance pay. What is it?
this
Is
is
it a
against
variable pay?
the target.
Kind of variable pay only.
variable pay.
Is it a variable pay?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Obviously, during the annual performance management cycle, what we have, there is a rating scale 1 to 5 or 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. And then you are evaluated based on that rating. Then you are given a annual performance, right? Okay.
Yes.
Then spot
Then
incentives.
spot incentive. This is like reward.
Absolutely. One form of variable pay where there is no predetermined target or predetermined measure, but you made a suggestion or you came out with something. So there is a spot award for something or some, an amount of money or a movie ticket or something of that kind. Okay.
It's a
So
competitive reward, ma'am. Yeah.
Pardon?
It's a competitive reward. I mean, so
Spot
the
incentive?
kind of
Are you
the
talking
part of
about
reward and the cognitive programs, RNR programs,
Hmm.
it don't have
So
any
spot
predetermined target, but yes, anyone who performs better will get rewarded.
No.
That
So
is the intent.
be anyone who performs. So what is it here? Spot incentive is anybody you can pick up. Okay, the best team of, or he could be giving a suggestion. So there is nothing like a criteria, a predetermined target or predetermined payout. Nothing. It's a spot award. Okay,
Correct.
great.
Correct.
Okay, higher educational
higher education allowance.
education allowance. Higher educational allowance.
Suppose
Okay.
employee gone for
In
higher
today's
education.
times, yes, organizations are also giving certain, allowances for people to study. Okay, I give it to you. Then location allowance,
Location
yes,
allowance.
transfer allowance, one-time transfer allowance. Every time you're transferred, you get some allowance. Relocation allowance, yes. Safety. Who gave this? And can you tell me what is it a variable pay? And if yes, why is it a variable pay? And who gets it?
Maybe zero accident cases.
Yes.
In construction site, generally they have these things.
Safety bonus, yes. I wanted you all to understand. It is not that because that line item safety bonus is there, that everybody gets it. It doesn't mean that. People who are concerned about safety, say for example, so there is a metric saying that adherence to certain accidents, or there is a safety protocol, so there are metrics captured, and vis-a-vis that, then people who are responsible for those things, especially in construction sites or manufacturing organizations, you have this safety bonus. So what I'm actually trying to tell you is that, when you have a certain variable pay, there are also certain metrics. There is a criteria for which you are given this variable pay. Okay, because you want people to be very cautioned, you want people to follow all the safety rules so that you reduce the number of accident. If the area is accident prone, reduce that area reduce the number of accidents. So this is the objective or the goal. Okay, great. Now let us go
Manufacturing companies keep some target at the beginning for the safety. Based on that, also they pay.
yeah,
But
safety
clear.
trainings. Absolutely. You are there on spot. Yeah. Team.
Recently, in my organization, we have reduced another kind of variable, new thing, employee ownership program or employee entrepreneurship program. There is nothing but a kind of variable pay to give something extra for their entrepreneurship, for their more motivation, bigger motivation, larger motivation. Just a kind of variable pay. Instead of giving the annual appraisal in fix, we bifurcate into two parts. So simply variable pay with a different name.
So there is some amount for performance, like for example, Google, most of their developments come from that. 30% of the time they have tied it up to some entrepreneurship. You can create something, innovate something of your own, whatever you like, passion. So they are creating some new products. So what does it mean? That the employer wants to develop or motivate people to become very creative, because they are the people who are working there. They can come out with best suggestions and solutions. So how do I motivate them? If I don't give them some money, then they will not be motivated. So yes, intrinsically, yes. How much of intrinsic? Sometimes you also need an external push, no? And that comes from some money. I can be passionate about. Okay, or then I'll join a non-profit organization, NGO, and I'll say, okay, fine, I'm not working for money at all. So that is intrinsic. But you have to see, that is where you will see that whenever you're talking about variable pay plans, you're looking at both intrinsic and also extrinsic motivators. Okay. Intrinsic is something within to create that passion and commitment. And extrinsic is, hey, it will satisfy him if he gets certain money, etc. Okay, guys. That's all. Oh, there's something else I thought. Where is the screen? I'm
1 minute.
missing the screen.
I stopped that 1 minute. Yes. Hello.
So spot incentive for teams also, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Team
Okay.
also.
So here you put sales incentive. So is it a team sales incentive?
Yes, ma'am.
Both, ma'am.
Zones and
Okay,
area.
fine. No, I'm okay with it. I'm just
Both.
clarifying it because sometimes you can have team sales incentive also. Because incentive is nothing but you see that, hey, this can be, this needs a team to be motivated to finish the task. So you have tied it up with the team goals. Okay. Long term. Yeah.
Long term ESOP,
ESOPs, retention.
retention bonus, long service award.
Yes.
Suppose one employee completed 10 year, 15 year, 20 year.
Yeah, absolutely.
ESOP award.
Right.
Then higher
Absolutely.
education allowance also put in long.
Yeah, then you have to stay there for longer period of time. But maybe not higher education for long term. It is more for a, you know, 3 to 5 years
Short term.
kind. Because higher education for how long? You will give him a quality. He'll say, okay, fine, Six Sigma certification, I'll make you do. But for how long can you keep? 3 to 5 years maximum, not beyond that. No? Yeah. Okay. Great. And then any team long term?
Ma'am, when we just since we were saying that 3 to 5 years can that be, but then if we are saying long term, then what is that tenure for this short term would be purely 1 year and long term would be like more than 3 years or so?
More than, see, you
Or
also have
5
to look at the
years?
context. Today, when you are looking at long term, earlier, when you are looking at long term to be, they would look at nothing less than 15, 20 years till the time you retired. But
Right.
today, long term, this long service award in IT companies, they have started giving it even from 3 years, 5 years milestones, somebody
Yeah.
who stayed for
5
5 years,
years,
they
10
give.
years,
So,
correct.
in the context of that, how volatile, how dynamic is the market, right? But typically in manufacturing organizations, you will consider at least a person to stay at least for 5 years. I mean, that's the minimum kind of a period you will look at.
In
Okay.
manufacturing, typically long term starts with 5 years, minimum 5 years.
Yeah, minimum 3 years. That's what I said. You don't have so much of mobility because the opportunities are also not that many because you have to be there. And then you need to get grounded. You need to understand certain things. Unlike IT, which is more technology based. So you have acquired new technology. Okay, I'll jump into another project. I'll jump into another organization. Okay, lovely, guys. Great. Okay, so you have understood that when we talk about variable pay, it is not guaranteed. It can be given at an individual level, at a team level, okay, at a unit level, and also at an organization level. Then it can have short term, it can be mid term, and it can also have a long term. Essentially, in order to ensure that people actually what are motivated and able to perform and also to retain their high performers, you have this variable pay plan. Now let us, if you can stop sharing, then we will look at some design considerations. I mean, some of the things which we need to consider when we design an incentive plan, general incentive plan. Okay. Okay. All right. So let us look at some of the steps to introduce the variable pay plan. Okay. A general broad steps to design consideration to introduce a variable pay. Very, very most importantly, intent. When I say intent, what is it? Intent. What is the meaning of intent? I want quickly, we are short of time. What is intent? The purpose,
What is the objective for which this
objective.
variable pay
So
is?
absolutely. So the objective can be, from the business point of view. Like, for example, what? You can say, hey, we want to increase revenue. No, from the business perspective. Then we'll say we want to increase productivity. Okay. It can also be from the customer perspective. That is, we want to increase what? Customer satisfaction. Can it be? Customer satisfaction. Then from the HR perspective, what can it be? The purpose, typically a variable pay plan.
High performance.
Retention.
Motivate,
Retention.
retain, right? Or ensure that there is, sometimes a variable pay plan can be tied to certain values, certain culture. Like somebody said, we have attendance allowance. Why do you give that? What is the purpose of that? Intent is so that everybody comes. What? There's not much of a absenteeism, to reduce
Cost reduction
absenteeism.
also can happen.
Pardon?
Cost reduction. Cost
Yeah,
also can
absolutely. So from the
reduce.
business perspective, it could be from the cost perspective, depending on the variable pay plan, both from the business perspective and also from the HR perspective, you can have the intent. Is it very, very important? Yes, definitely it is very important. And whenever you design a variable plan, the intent has to be explicitly stated so that when you communicate, the employees know that what is the purpose of this variable pay plan. Okay. Like, for example, when I have a sales incentive plan, the intent is definitely to increase sales. So definitely it is clearly communicated that this is the predetermined target. If you sell more than this, then this is your payout. So if I don't do that, then how will I be motivated? I won't be motivated. One is the intent. Eligibility criteria. Now, whenever you are introducing a variable plan, you also need to have in the variable pay plan explicitly mentioned who are the people who are eligible under the variable pay plan. Like, for example, sometimes the probationers, are they eligible or are they not eligible? So you will write only confirmed employees, because sometimes 6 months of probation will be there. Only people who are confirmed employees are eligible for this pay plan, right? Or people who have given resignation are not eligible for this pay plan. Have you got this query? Sometimes, people have given their resignation and then they will ask for variable pay. But you know that after the resignation, then he does not get a variable pay, right? For those 2 months. Or are people with maternity and who are actually going through maternity, 6 months of maternity? Tell me this question. Are people who take maternity, women, are they eligible for variable pay typically?
No.
Tell me.
No.
They
No.
don't
No.
get. They are only entitled for guaranteed pay, which is their base salary. But they are not entitled for, but they will still ask, right? Or like, for example, so you need to write down everything
Trainees.
very, very clearly. And then which level of people are, incentive plans could be for various. One could be for salespeople, one could be for HR. So it has to also to be very, very clear which level of people, which is the target group you are actually targeting. That has to be there. Now, what is performance measure? And do you think it's very, very important? Anybody?
Yes, it is a criteria basis which the bare minimum threshold level criteria which one should fulfill in order to get the variable pay.
Get, or in fact, even for the success of a variable
Success.
pay.
Success.
Because the intent, unless and until you have clearly, explicitly said that I'm going to measure the performance in this way. This is a rating scale of 1 to 5. If you get 1, you have nothing. You won't get any performance bonus. If you get 2, this is what it is. 3, this is what it is. If you clearly mention this is the amount, and how will you get? What is the criteria? So you have certain kind of a what performance measurement criteria based on which you will be getting your. So performance measures have to be very, very clear. It could be in terms of what? Absolute objective measures. It cannot be subjective measures. Why do you think 80% of the time variable pay plans fail? Because we don't focus on the performance measures. If a person is very clear about, hey, this is what I need to perform, and this is the way I have to perform, and this is my what key performance indicators. This is how I will be measured. Say, for example, for an HRBP, what are some of the key performance indicators for the performance of that HRBP? I'm sure there are one or two HRBP people.
The
HR
cost
business
is
partners.
one.
Pardon?
Manpower cost is one. That is revenue.
Manpower cost. Okay.
As
Okay.
in, there is a target that how much it should
Yeah.
be.
For this business, you need to actually get all the, if the person is taking care of recruitment as well,
revenue.
then you need to, yeah.
I mean, productivity metric.
Employment engagement index
For
is another, which,
succession.
you know, right?
Pipeline.
Then
Attrition
you will
also.
also tie
I
it
think
with,
that TAT, turnaround time
pardon?
for choosing a position, right?
Leadership
Yeah. So
position.
turnaround. So for
Turnaround time.
example, for a recruiter, okay, more simpler. For a recruiter, if I just say that, hey, you have to recruit, the performance measure is 20 people have to be recruited. Obviously, Neha will understand as I have to recruit 20 people, and she will recruit 20 people. Now, after 3 months, 50% of the people have attrited. After another 3 months, 50% of that 50%, the business manager will say, hey, these are useless underperformers, can't even be trained. What has happened? The quality has taken a great hit. Why did the quality take a hit? Because I have not mentioned in the measure of a recruiter saying that even quality criteria. No? Then I will only look at volumes, quantity numbers, and I will quickly close them in the turnaround time to get my bonus. But then I have not put there, all those measures, quality measure, cost measure. Only when I will put down all the criteria, 3 or 4 criteria, then I will evaluate and then I will get the bonus. Making sense, guys? Huh? So every time you have an incentive plan, measures are very, very important. Otherwise, the very fact that you have a variable pay plan to motivate and to attract and to retain, that fails. Participation and payout amount. What is participation? Here, when I think participation in the incentive plan, which level of people or which grade of people are going to participate and by how much? Say, for example, when you get your employment offer letter, you will see that 10% of your salary offered is a variable pay, right? In a CTC. Or higher you go 20%, 30%. So depending on, so participation means what percentage of your salary at what level is the variable pay. Payout. Typically, when you're talking about the lowest level, the payout is month on month. Associates, month on month. If you don't pay them month on month, then they are not motivated. Their incentives get paid month on month or sometimes quarterly. For most of the others, the rest of the people, it is paid quarterly at best and 6 months. But for the top management, when do you get them? When is the payout paid for a variable pay? When do you get paid? At the end of the year.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, because their goals cannot be evaluated, because that payout also has got some meaning. Why do they pay month on month? Why do they pay quarter or 6 months? And why do they pay for the top management at the end of the year? 50% of his salary is variable pay, and he gets a solid performance bonus, the top guy, because at that time when the profit and everything is books are balanced, then they will know whether the top management really made money or not. Have they? Because their output is aligned with the goals of the organization. But at the lowest level, Yes, I may have a look at the, there is visibility, but I'm not directly linked with the organizational goals. So therefore, my contribution in terms of variable pay is also minimal, 5%, 10%. But as you keep growing higher and higher, the percentage of variable pay is much higher. Okay, makes sense, guys? Huh? So payout plans, as I said, it is monthly, quarterly, half yearly, and annually. Funding. Do you think funding is important? Some are self-funded,
Very important. Very important.
some generate. So when there's, like attendance bonus, then funding comes from where? You have to actually in your compensation budget, you have to actually budget for that so that the finance guy will offset some amount. Otherwise, suddenly I want to give attendance bonus. Finance guy will say, you didn't even budget for it. How will I give you the money then? No? But some, like a sales plan, they're self-funded. You generate more, a gain sharing plan, self-funded. You generate, you are getting money and you get the money. But some incentives, like for example, safety bonus, you have to budget it in your compensation budgeting. It's a line item to be budgeted. Okay. Of course, do not make a variable plan so complex that you are trying to tie up so many things in one variable plan. I want to achieve productivity. I want to achieve customer satisfaction. I want to achieve everything, 5, 6 things. What happens? It becomes difficult. You tie up only 2 or 3 things to one incentive plan. Okay. Administrative system, in the sense that if you have many, your system also should be so simple and using technology that it can be administered by just maybe one person. In the end, any incentive plan is as good as, it gets reviewed, evaluated, gets feedback. Then you keep iterating it and then refining the pay plan, the variable pay plan. Okay. Guys, now you have a very interesting exercise. I hope you got that exercise. It's a very interesting exercise. I'll make the group into 2 groups now. Okay, so that quick. So you have this exercise strictly, only 20 minutes. So I'm reading through the exercise. You have to design a variable pay plan, or to say a pay for performance plan, or it could be an incentive plan. All of these mean the same thing, right? Okay. Now, for whom? Very clear. This is what designing an incentive plan for a garment retail store. You can think of Reliance. Who are the garments retail stores? Tell me. Huh? It could be Mark and Spencer. It could be,
Pantaloons or
yeah. Huh?
Right.
Or W women. There are so many, right? Okay. Now, what are the challenges? Background. National garment retail chain is facing challenges, and this is a national retail chain. Okay. Challenges in boosting sales, customer satisfaction at one of its locations. The store has employees. Typically in retail store, sales associates, cashiers, stock staff who will ensure that there is stock. So you will have all kinds of people. All right. No. And you also have to promote inclusiveness and teamwork. They are lacking teamwork and inclusiveness. The manager has observed the following issues: low sales during weekdays, despite high weekend traffic; decreasing customer satisfaction scores due to inconsistent service; high employee turnover, especially among cashiers and sales guys. Now, all of you are the HR team, corporate office of the HR, HR team who devise in the compensation benefit incentive plan. So they want to introduce an incentive plan to improve performance. When I say performance, obviously sales or revenue to be increased, right? The plan must be fair, motivating, and aligned with store's goals. Okay. Now, so what do you need to do? I will, you all are how many people? 7 or 8? Let me just see. Participants. Okay. So I think we will have 2 groups. All right. Now, define the goals. Okay. So each team will identify the primary goals the incentive plan must address. You are designing an incentive plan, and there are certain goals you need to address. Likewise, for example, increasing weekday sales, improving customer satisfaction, reducing employee turnover, that is attrition. Now you have to define the goals, design the incentive plan. You need to design an incentive plan, but you need to first of all put who are the people, eligibility criteria, who are going to participate in this incentive plan. Cashiers or sales associates, or you want to have 2, 3 different incentive plans for only cashiers or only for sales, or for all of them one incentive plan. Okay. What will be the performance metrics? Now remember, cashier will have a different metric, sales guy will have a different metric. What? And this performance metric will reward what? Sales growth, customer feedback scores, or what is it? Okay. Now, incentive types. You can have monetary incentives, you can have non-monetary. Like monetary is bonus, etc. And non-monetary, you can have what? Recognitions, extra time off, or typically these guys who work there in retail stores, they also get discounts on merchandise. Payout frequency, you want to have it weekly, monthly, quarterly. For which level of people you want weekly, monthly, quarterly. Now, the budget is also given here. How much? $10,000 quarterly budget for the incentive. So, you need to present the plan. Now, this is some data for you. Average weekday sales. Current performance is 10,000. Target is 15,000 per day. Customer satisfaction is 75%. Target is 90%. Turnover is 20% for the quarter. Target is 10%. You can do it like this. Under everything, eligibility criteria, just write who are the people. Under performance criteria, write, okay, if you are saying performance metrics, if you are saying weekday sales growth, then typically write a target. And how will you compare it? Measurement. CSAT, customer satisfaction scores. So this is just for you. I'm just reading through, but all of this we have discussed, like employee retention, then incentive types. You can write monetary, non-monetary. And I want you to do only, don't look at, aligning goals with objectives of organization. I want you to do till the 5th one, budget allocation, and how will you use your budget. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, which group wants to present quickly?
So to address the issues, we write down the proposals, like to increase weekday sales. We thought some discounts to be offered, or some referrals discounts.
Okay.
To increase customer satisfaction ratio, we can have customer satisfaction survey. What are the causes keeping customers dissatisfied? To identify the root cause of customer satisfaction. To improve retention, can plan some incentive to store manager, because he is the leader, and the prime responsibility lies with him. So that was the thought
Okay.
with which we moved ahead,
Okay.
but
Okay.
could not conclude finally. So here, what we did here.
Yeah. Sales associates. Yeah. Read.
So some short-term monthly incentive, sales incentive, and some spot incentives also.
Okay. To increase the sales, you are saying Are you saying that you will keep a monthly target or a daily target? So typically, retail stores have daily targets.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, non-monetary, you are saying people who do very well, etc., there will be letters of appreciation. Will it also come with some incentives, spot award kind of a thing? If there is an appreciation, letter of appreciation with some money?
Yes, can be.
Can be. Otherwise, letter of appreciation doesn't get appreciated well. हाँ?
Right.
कुछ
Right.
पैसे भी तो चाहिए साथ में. हाँ?
Ma'am,
Right.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Shweta had some idea, Shweta,
Yeah. Please carry
that
on.
the store
Tell me.
manager can visit house of the people sales teams with the
Mhm.
letter of appreciation kind of. Shweta.
and
Okay.
of
Okay.
appreciation also appreciating their family. That's
Okay.
that's also a very good retention strategy, in that sense.
Yeah.
When a letter,
Absolutely. I agree. Agreed. But what I realize at a lower levels, some monetary has to be attached with it, right?
yeah,
Intrinsic factor के अलावा उनके लिए extrinsic factor भी important हो जाता है, नहीं?
that's right. That's right.
Because it's the question of buying more things for themselves. So at a lower level, when you have R&R, you always give something or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then store manager, short term, monthly, quarterly, monetary, long term incentive, CSAT, revenue. All right. So let me also look at the other group and then we will discuss. Okay. I
Yeah.
mean, at least you made a beginning. You thought about it. The three issues were, how do I increase my weekday sales? Two, how do I increase my customer satisfaction? And three, how do I reduce my attrition? And you had to design incentive plans around it. Okay. Let us look at the other group as well. Yeah. Can
Sure.
the other group?
Okay, ma'am, the thought process was we were taking each and every aspect and how it can be correlated to sales and non-sales stuff. So,
Right.
first aspect was revenue. So, if revenue needs to be improved, it would be sales as well as while your store staff and other non-sales staff also contributes to the revenue in a certain way because if the cashiers are not handled properly, or if the inventory is not managed properly, then the sales team will also not be able to drive sales. So we divided
Right.
into sales and non-sales stuff who impact revenue in terms. So for sales, we have clear-cut criteria in terms of achieving of the sales revenue. That's an individual monetary reward.
Hmm.
And for cashier and other non-sales staff, they have their own parameters that, okay, highest cash handled accuracy. And for store staff, it could be that is the stock, inventory stock, how they are managing, replenishment, how they are doing it. So those threshold criteria would be set for them, and basis that they will get a monthly incentive because that attributes to the overall revenue.
Stockouts.
Stock
How
out.
often is it?
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
the criteria for the monetary rewards. And for non-monetary, we have mentioned employee of the month to be given for both sales and
Okay.
non-sales staff.
Non-sales. All right.
And
Okay.
since the store would have achieved their target collectively, so the team lunches for them in a month.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And skill-based training to drive performance is what we were thinking. I mean, we were just building on that. CSAT,
Okay.
we were also working on. So,
Okay.
so
Yeah. Good. Good job. All right. Yeah. So let me give my bit a little, and yeah, if you can just scroll up, I will take those three issues. Essentially, okay. So if you notice that this retail store essentially had three issues. That is, weekday sales, increasing the CSAT and reducing their attrition percentage, right? Three main issues. Now, typically when you are designing an incentive plan, So you could look at options like only designing incentive plan just for salespeople, because salespeople are directly linked to the selling of products and revenue. Now, indirectly, cashier, the stock room staff, etc., they're all indirectly connected to the sales, because unless and until there is teamwork, inclusivity, like for example, um, a customer asks for certain thing, and there is no support from the inventory or stock guy, so then what happens? The customer is dissatisfied. So here is it a quick, typically what happens in a retail, um, the payouts are typically monthly and half yearly and annually. So the incentives are also short-term incentives and at best, um, you know, midterm, like, medium term incentives, not so much for long-term incentive, because the nature of the business is such that you really can't look at more than 2 to 5 years. So to increase the sales, probably you can have an incentive plan where, big day sales targets for salespeople, every day sales target, right? So that means if you are increasing a target by this much, so there is an incentive linked. So this is purely for the salespeople, daily targets. You could also have something like, a happy hour discount. Somebody, I think, who mentioned here or in the other one, they mentioned about discounts. So one of the groups mentioned about discounts,
We talked about the referral discounts.
Yeah. Also, this, ensuring that uh, the entire team actually supports you, because what happens typically, during the closing hours, there is a rush and they don't want to entertain customers. So, to ensure that they are actually very pleasing and courteous to the customers, so you can have some kind of happy hour discounts. Then you can have a group incentive saying that, hey, if collectively people have actually managed to, so it will improve the teamwork if you have a group incentive. That also could be one. And some of you have definitely mentioned about the R&R, like, the top performance employee, etc. For the sales guy, you can have. Now, for the customer feedback, to increase it, you can have a typically do you have this net promoter score kind of a thing. So based on that, if you have increased this score on, then you get some kind of an incentive as a group, maybe as an organization as a whole, the store as a whole. If you are month on month, you can track that and tie up some incentive to that. Okay. Then there is something like, I recall, uh, mystery shopper. Have you heard of that mystery shopper? Essentially, this is a technique where you use, you test, you evaluate people for their service and quality without they knowing, and then you reward them for that service and quality. Okay. Then you can also give, something for upselling, cross selling, because in a retail store, these are the things which will increase your sales. Other than that, I think a lot of people have actually talked about non-monetary training certifications, which is very
Not
good.
in
Even
retail, how
certifications.
cross-selling and upselling
Yeah, yeah.
would be even gauged, because ultimately it will be the invoice value that's can be looked at. No, how I'm just from a practical, while they do. Okay, but how would at the evaluation point, how would one know that how much was upselling was done and cross-selling was done?
No, typically, I think cashier can tell you, right?
No,
Somebody
because
who's
at
come
the
for
retail
certain, huh?
end, it would be
Uh,
difficult.
it will
The
be
store, yeah.
because, like, for example, if you have noticed, typically, if you go wanting to buy a pant, and then people will always tell you, hey, you can buy this and this,
So you
or
don't
upsell, like
know.
they will show you a lot of brands, and then depending on, high value
While
item.
upsell and cross-sell is a technique to increase your invoicing value, but you
Yeah.
won't be able to actually pinpoint whether the invoice value was or the bill value was because of upselling or cross-selling.
So you will need some kind of a mechanism there,
Yeah,
you're
you
trying to
won't
say.
be able unless the manager or somebody is sitting there to say whether this much was cross-sell, upsell or
Because
something.
typically you're looking at high value or a certain kind of a product mix to increase your
Right.
sales so that you are getting more revenue. But as you said, but I will definitely look at it how retail store people do this, because I've noticed very often you ask for certain thing, then they
No,
will show you different varieties
every
on
sales
higher value.
use this
Yeah.
technique. Every salesperson
Mm.
use this technique to
But
increase their
how
revenue.
to what extent it is tied up to the incentive plan, I will have to
Incentive,
check it out.
yeah. Unless they
Absolutely.
self-declare it that this was cross-sell or upsell.
True.
And you don't have a
Absolutely. You have a point.
mechanism to,
Very true. Yeah. Then you can also look at career progressions, you said. Then we also can look at team engagements. These are some of the things which I just figured out to me. And then most of the payouts at a lower level can be done at a quarterly. But for a manager, you can do it half yearly or you can do it annually, right? For a store manager, typically you can do the payout at a annually. But for the rest of the people, it can be done maybe quarterly. But if you're having targets, I think daily targets, you can also have a payout monthly because that's how the motivation builds up then, right? But good show, guys, so that you get a sense of how do you actually design a incentive plan where the focus is not just on an incentive plan, the focus is on criteria and what am I going to achieve. That's very, very important. And then have I put the metrics in place? Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Now we are coming to shifting gears, guys, to say, for example, compensation budgeting. Say, for example, you are an HR head and the CEO is going to ask you. I'll ask Sagar actually. Say, hey, Sagar, what is your budget going to be for next year? Compensation budget. How will you go about? There are some HR heads here. Typically, the CEO will ask, hey, how will you go about? What is the basis of looking at a budget? At a, not looking at details, line by line items. Typically,
We
how will
usually
you go about?
anticipate the attrition and hiring, how many we are going to
Hiring,
hire,
increment percent,
increment percentage.
Yeah,
average
these are all
increment percent that you
details
would give.
which one looks at, right? But if he wants to have a ballpark figure, how would you go about? A quick, I'll say, hey, Priti, so what is it going to be your compensation budget for next year?
So
Look
average
at
increment percent as well as the
inflation also.
buffer that we may take for the new hires.
How many are going to hire next year?
So typically, very easy, compensation, budgeting. Oh my God, people get stressed and tense and all that. Simple. So there are two ways of looking at it. One is, what was my last year actual, you know, compensation pool, last year's compensation pool, right? So based on that, then I will look at, hey guys, what is the percentage of revenue planned for next year? So obviously, because if you have planned some 20% higher revenue, then I will also have to increase my compensation budget because to get that revenue, maybe I'll have to look at more numbers, I'll have to hire more people, etc., etc. So that's one way of looking at it. That means going by the past data, what is my compensation cost, and then adding certain percentage, looking at what is the percentage of revenue you are looking at. Okay, that's one. Then there's another one. Say, for example, I don't know, it's a startup or a new company. How do you build a budget then? Typically, we look at one more a very important thing, ratio we look at is called
Ma'am, just
ECR.
sorry. Yeah, that's what I was trying. That is revenue per employee. Can that metric be used to project as well?
CR. It's called
ECR.
employee cost to revenue. Why is it very, very important? And the CEO or the HR head will have to have it at the tip of his in any time. Hey, what is my ECR cost? What does it mean? That means what is the wage cost or the employee cost vis-a-vis my revenue? Typically, on an average, the services, IT services, say for example, will have about 20%, 30%, depending on the kind of human capital required, okay, on an average. Or say, for example, a product development company will have a higher ECR ratio. Why? Because they have to hire high quality people at really pretty high wage costs. The manufacturing organization typically has something like 7%, 8%, or at best 9% or so. Now, where will you get your figures? You can easily get them in the public domain. Look at it in the manufacturer setup if you call for ECR. But to be specific, how do you go about? You will have to look at, if I'm an IT company, I'm in the IT services, I'm a startup. Now, how will I know the employee cost to revenue? What kind of a percentage will I have to look at? So, need to look at, hey, what is Wipro? Say Wipro is about 15%, Infosys, okay, about 18%, TCS, another. So I will say, okay, fine. Let me actually be, somewhere between the range of 10, 12, and 8. I might take a medium call. Okay. Now you may say, but is it available publicly? Of course. Go to their annual reports, look at their revenue, look at their employee cost, divide it, and you will get the ECR. P&L statement. Okay, simple. You just go to their annual reports and you will get this figure. So these are two ways of looking at your ECR, employee cost to revenue. But why is it critical? Because it impacts your profits. Higher the wage cost, what happens? Lower your profits. So what happens? This guy also knows competition. What is competition in ECR? Vis-a-vis hours. So that is where whenever you go for one full-time employee recruitment, also you will say, hey, how are you going to compensate? Because every time you are increasing your wage cost, then somewhere your profit is getting impacted. Having said that, the rest of it is very, very simple. So say for example, your last year's compensation pool was 200 million. And because this year you have increased your target revenue by 25%, so obviously this also will increase. So it will become 250. Any maths calculation, right? 25 and 25 for 25%, so 250 million. Now you have to go by all your line items. What are the issues to be considered? Say, for example, I'm budgeting new wage code, as you know, everything. So you will say, hey, I have to budget something. Say I budgeted 10 million. Then I'm saying, hey, because I have to bring about um, a better quality of employees, I may have to actually increase the salary of the new employees I'm recruiting. So maybe I will need to budget something. Then I have to have a new incentive plan. So to attract and retain, so I'll budget something. Or I have a supervisory level of people, and in fact, I need to really give them some kind of a training, a lot of certifications. Maybe I'm going to spend a lot of money there, 2 million. So you are actually looking at, sorry, let me just close this up. Sorry. So you're looking at, then obviously you look at even the heights you're going to give. Then you will look at internal equity if you are doing something of the kind, or if you have to doing market corrections, external equity. So you are putting all your line items, function by function, everything with regard to all the job functions and all the line items which have wage costs, put them together. Say, for example, I have actually budgeted some amounts under some line items and it comes up to 256 million. Then obviously, it has to be around 250. because your CEO is not going to give you one extra bit. So what do you need to do? You'll have to iterate again, go through it again and say, hey, where can I reduce? So here, if you have to look at it, where will you make those concessions? Where will you reduce? Typically, if these are the line items, just giving you an idea. Government, can you do anything? You can't do anything on the compliance part. Okay. At best, you can do something here. Maybe because you are in excess by shooting by 6 million. So maybe here 2 to 3 you can do something. Maybe here 1, because it is only 2 million, you can't do much. Right? So here, so typically say, okay, fine. I will, consider something. Maybe 1 million I can make do here, increment, right? Corrections maybe 1. So that's how you're going to then iterate, go through, check, and then you will ensure that you come back to 250 million. Typically, this is how your budgeting is done. So definitely you have to take into consideration at the budgeting time that what are those new interventions you want to do in terms of any new benefits, in terms of any new training and developments, any, like say for example, for the R&R and for the engagement, you don't actually budget any amount. The finance guy is not going to give you later on saying that I need, for my team outing money. He's not going to give you anything. Will he give you? So you need to budget each and everything taking into consideration. These are all the important items. So that's how you're going to, what is it?
One
Budget them.
question.
Yeah.
One question.
Yeah.
So all these factors, I think it is mentioned for the entire year and not only for the compensation increment cycle, isn't it?
No, when you're doing budgeting, you have to take into consideration
For
the
the entire year.
entire HR function,
Hmm.
recruitment, if you are going to take new people, because the company is saying I'm going to increase revenue, but if you are not budgeting for new hire recruitment, then how will you take them? New hire
Exactly.
recruitment costs, salary costs. So typically we start off taking that payroll wage cost and then look at all the other things and start adding it. It takes a long time, of
Trainings
course.
also.
Ma'am,
Everything
Absolutely.
means trainings, etc. Upskilling everything, right?
See, training, whatever HR is doing, but there are certain training programs which the business does. So when the business does its compensation for the business, then they allocate 5%, 10% of their budget to training of their people. Okay?
Hmm.
ma'am,
They will show
sometimes,
it in their training. That's why there is a hassle. Oh, no, you please take it into your budget.
ma'am,
But all the
sometimes,
leadership
Correct.
training programs, etc., I'm sending, all that will be considered for the HR budget. Yeah.
yeah,
Somebody had a
ma'am,
question.
sometimes we saw that after this taking the budget of manpower planning recruitment, but mid of
Hmm.
the year certain positions like we again hire, and for that
You have
some
to keep
special
some amount of buffer. I'll just show you.
no
You have to keep some amount of buffer also.
okay.
See, existing jobs, all the cost, it is a detailed kind of a thing. And then you have to look at everything job wise, who are the functions, what kind of a salary, what is the proposed percentage of increment, then you have to take into forecast everything, what is that you really wanting to increase, if you want to do market corrections. Okay, so all that you have to take into consideration and then add up everything in terms of increments, bands, midterm salary, variable payouts, hot skills, whatever you want to do, and then come to the assumptions. Okay.
Okay.
So with this, we close this variable pay plan, okay, compensation budgeting, etc., and we end the session. But we have two things which we have actually left out yesterday, which are very critical, and I want you 100% because yesterday I found that some people were not able to do it. So let me take you through. This is what designing of the salary structure using what midpoint differentials. I think both the groups tried to do that, right? Okay. because of paucity of time, I know that otherwise, typically what I do is I start working, but then since I knew that we won't have so much of time, it- okay. This is yesterday. All of you, I want you all to really, this is going to be very useful to you all. Okay. Is everybody there? I mean, some of you I can see, some of you all in the audio, but yeah. So just give me a thumbs up if you're all there. This is yesterday's data, if you recall. You all were divided into two groups, and we said, hey, you have to design a salary structure and create what? Also bands, okay? And ensure that there is a overlap as well, taking into consideration the midpoint differentials. Because typically what happens, if you are going to create a band end to end, that means my higher band, my successive band is going to start from the maximum of the previous band. Then what happens? I told you what happens then. Typically, then what happens? Say, for example, Pratya, I want to increase his salary because he's a good performer, but he is yet not ready for promotion. But I cannot increase his salary because the new band starts at the maximum of the previous band, right? So therefore, for salary progression, I definitely need some amount of what? Overlap. But then how much of that overlap is actually the expertise you gain by doing more and more of this designing of structures, because it is interrelated with employees' salary progression. Now we will just look at it how, right? All of you did this. You all did your pay line, right? Pay line. Now the pay line, the R square was 100, 1. So I didn't do that. I just said I just kept this because it's the same data. Now, after that, what did I say? You all had to do the grades and the salary ranges. Okay. Now, typically, when you design a structure, there are some steps. What are the steps? First, step 1, you create job title, job points, range minimum. You all know range minimum means the minimum of that range, range midpoint, range maximum. Can you see, or should I make it a little bigger? Now, range maximum. Don't look at the figures. I'm only getting into the title. So range spread, midpoint or pay grade differential. Now there is a difference between range midpoint and midpoint grade differential. Is there a difference or no? The range midpoint is the midpoint of a salary range, while the midpoint grade differential is the difference between the midpoint of one grade to the next grade's midpoint. That is the difference. Midpoint differential. Got it? Now, how will you create a salary structure which overlaps? So when you have to do that, next, what will you do? You will look at quickly what kind of midpoint differentials will I give. For example, I started with, say, 10%, looking at the titles like analyst, senior analyst, and lead analyst. I said, let the midpoint differential be 15%, and for the manager, 20%. Okay. Now to get my range midpoint here, what do I need to do? First of all, the second step is that the first range midpoint will be the lowest of my market data or my lowest of my pay line data. So here, what is it, the lowest? 3,50,000. Okay. So that is my midpoint for this. Got it? Very clear? Okay. Now what you need to do, you need to add the midpoint differential here. That means you are adding 10% of 3,50,000 to arrive at the next range midpoint. That's the formula. If you look at this. Okay. The next one will be also, you are adding 10% to 3,85,000. Okay. Then again, the next one will be, you are adding 15% to this 4,23,000. And that's how I've arrived at the range midpoint. Okay. Now I want you to look at this. Now, I have taken a 10% differential, but this is hypothetical data. Okay. Now look at this range midpoint, 3,85,000, and look at this market data midpoint, 5,50,000. What does it mean? That this midpoint is much lesser than this. So, in fact, in reality, in the market, you will not be able to attract any talent. Are you with me? Though it is a hypothetical data, it's a good case for you to, understand. It is not. So that's, even if you have put a 10% differential, you have to look at it. Hey, this is the market midpoint, and this is my midpoint. Can I be so low? It can't be so low. Also, it will give you an understanding when you do saying that, say, for example, manager's job points are what? Salary is 11,50,000. Okay. Now, lead analyst salary is 9,50,000. That is, it is 20. I just did, 21% higher than lead analyst. And lead analyst salary is 27% higher than senior analyst. And this is higher by 36%. And the analyst salary is higher by 57%. Now, you may ask, for example, in reality, if it has happened, typically when your data comes like this, do you know what would have happened? Sometimes what happens when you're collecting market data, maybe your entry-level people have all attrited, and the kind of market data you have got is all of tenured people whose salaries are very high. So therefore, then when such things happen, you need to look at some more data. Are you with me? Okay. Now, having said that, so 10% differential is not sufficient. So what should I do now? I look at 40% differential. So what am I doing now? Here, I'm adding 40% to 3,50,000. So my midpoint has become how much? 4,90,000. Now you may say, if I'm going to increase it by higher, typically what happens? When you're, then it will also impact your spread. I'm coming to that. So first of all, so you look at, when you're doing this, now look at your data here. So this has become 4,90,000 and this is 550. It's fine, because when you are creating a spread, then it will fall well within it. So I have added 40% as my midpoint differentials and added. You just have to do all this. Okay. Now, once you have arrived at, now you have to create a what? Spread. That means you have to create a salary range, minimum and maximum. Now, what kind of a spread will you take? If you take a very big spread, think of a rubber band. If you are going to increase the spread, just see, if you are going to increase the spread, what happens? The maximum increases, right? Supposing in a salary range, I'm increasing the spread. What happens typically? The maximum is increasing. While what happens to the minimum? Quickly. What will happen to the minimum?
It will overlap, no? With the previous.
No. Think of a salary range. Supposing I'm giving 20% spread as opposed to 20% spread, I'm increasing it to 40% spread. What happens to the salary? Say, for example, there is a salary range of 8,000 to 12,000. Okay. Now that is 50%. So I'm increasing the spread by 80%. Then what will happen to the maximum? Will it increase? It will increase.
Yeah.
What will happen to the minimum? It will
It will remain as is.
decrease.
Decrease.
It will decrease, no? Think about it. When you keep increasing the spread, this will increase, this will decrease. But when you do this will decrease and maximum also will decrease. So what happens when your spread is too big, too wide? You will not be able to attract talent because your minimum becomes very less. Are you with me, guys? So look at this now. So I made a spread of 50%. So now there is a formula. The formula, if you have the midpoint and I will also put it on that. If you have the midpoint and also the spread, the formula to calculate minimum is equal to midpoint divided by 1 plus bracket 1 by 2 of range width. That is the spread. See, I put the thing here. If I click here, okay, I'll put the formula. I will actually send you all this sheet as well. Okay. So now you can calculate your minimum and also the maximum because you know midpoint and you also know the range spread. Okay. So when I have calculated, now you look at the ranges. Now you look at the ranges. For example, if I take this range for an analyst, what is the minimum? The minimum is 3,92,000 and the maximum is 6,12,000. So therefore, though the market midpoint is 5,50,000, so it will still have people, even if they have recruited, they can still reach the maximum of this. Because like here, if you see, it is less than the, have you seen here? My 4,81,000, the maximum for this analyst. It is lesser than your midpoint. Okay. Now, if you collect this data, look at this. There's that. Yeah. Now, if you plot this data, can you see? So your maximum, your midpoint, and your minimum. And these are your bands. Can you see the overlap? Can you see the overlap? Okay. And how do you do this? Just like that. That is, select the data, go to insert, add trend line. But for every job point of this, if you just add a trend line, you will get this. Very easy to do this. Kriti is getting, she's thinking, what is happening? Huh? And well, a person who has managed to do this is a person who can be called, oh, I'm a calm person. Okay. So you will get, because you can then work for your own organization. You can go see and how it is, right? It takes, of course, there is practice required, several attempts, and you will get it. There's nothing like, you can't get it. Okay, guys. So any questions before I close the session?
Ma'am, on the left hand side, that is the market data, right? Or a market data as in the
Left,
median data.
this one?
Yeah. Top of
This one?
Yeah, that analyst 5.5 lakhs, for example.
If you
That is
recall,
the
this
median
is the
salary.
data we gave you yesterday, right?
Yeah, isn't this the median salary
Yeah.
or what is it?
So market data is always median data, midpoint data.
But then 157, how is it? Then the CR is 157, right?
No, this 157 I have calculated. Obviously, you can't See, analyst is 57%. The salary of market midpoint data is 57% higher than junior analyst.
Oh, that way you're saying. Okay, got it.
Yeah. And the senior analyst is 36% higher than this. So I gave you an explanation saying that sometimes why is it 57% higher than this? Maybe when collecting market data, entry people were all attrited. You had tenured people. So maybe you collected tenured data. So it gave you a wrong data. So you need to look at. So
Okay.
typically when this is a hypothetical case, but typically when such data also comes into, then you can easily then validate, by doing this and by looking at, hey, in essence, by what percentage is the salary is increasing? Because typically what happens, it has to have a positive progression. But here, if you see, the market midpoints are higher here as in compared to the manager level. Okay, because this was a hypothetical data.
Okay. And how do we ensure the overlap has happened? I mean, I didn't exactly get
How
that.
did you? What,
How,
Saga?
how do we ensure that overlap actually happens? In the scenario 2, I think overlap has happened. So how do we ensure that overlap actually happens? Because it is ideal
No,
to
no,
have some
even
sort of
here
overlap.
also overlap has happened. Even in the first scenario also overlap has happened because I've taken a 10% midpoint differential. If you see, there is an overlap. Uh, uh, if you, can you see this data now?
Yeah, yeah.
Where is my okay? Where's my okay? Ah. If you see for junior analysts, minimum is 2,80,000, maximum is 4,37,000. But for an analyst, it is 3 lakhs. So there is an
Yeah.
overlap because your minimum is starting not at the maximum, but a little inside.
Yeah.
Okay. But But why are you disqualifying it? Because when you're comparing it with the market median or even with the pay line data, which is almost the same thing, your market median itself is 5,50,000.
Yeah.
So can you have a range maximum of 4,81,000?
Correct, correct.
Are you with me? So
Yeah.
therefore, what will you do? That means you'll have to increase your what? Midpoint differential. Because otherwise you won't be able to attract anybody.
Yeah. Got it.
So when you're doing overlapping, first calculate your midpoint differentials. What is that you want to give? Then add it to your midpoints. Then create the spread. And that's it. When you have the spread, use the formula that is for minimum, the midpoint divided by 1 plus 1 by 2 of this spread. And for maximum, it is midpoint divided by 1 plus this spread. Okay. I will send you some set of formulas. They're all
Yeah.
there. And I think they are there in the reading material actually. Okay. The only way to get perfect at it is keep practicing with data. Then you will get at it. Okay, guys. Best thing is to go and check your own company's data. Huh? Okay. So any questions? And so with that, I think then we will actually can I stop this? Can I stop sharing it? Okay. Well, thank you one and all. Any one question I
Yeah,
can take?
ma'am, have you shared this particular sheet also having these formulas you have worked in?
Yeah, you have it.
Okay,
If it is not there, you can just send me a WhatsApp. Done?
okay, okay.
Okay. Not an issue at all. Because the idea is for all of you to learn. And you have actually, I have given an assignment where you have to do this kind of work.
Correct.
Okay. So thank you one and all, guys. You have been participative. I'm sorry I have been pushing you all a little too hard, but nevertheless, comp is comp. It is not like a sweet talk, keep on talking. Huh? It is quanti. So unless and until you have your hand at data, keep doing all this regression, creating salary ranges, trying to create spreads and see how it is, you will actually realize that it's a great, great competency. Okay, there'll be a huge value add. Whether you are an HR head, whether you're a senior manager, whether you are an HR BP, you'll have to know comp and ben.